Has invited me to Art Trek Unseen. It is humbling, an amazing honor to think that I could potentially work with all of you. I'm coming in from the outside. I've only lived here for 4 years. I have, however, commuted between Dallas and Shreveport for the last 15 years, about once a month, to collaborate with one of my friends here in town. But what's most important, and let me just do a quick background. I know some of you have taken some very precious time of your Saturday to be here. You want to know what the heck is going on. So I want to make sure that that gets out in the open as soon as possible. But I wanted to give you a quick background of why I'm incredibly excited about this. When I learned at a very early age that my last name was Oldenburg, and then my dad showed me this awesome sculpture in the DMA of a giant spike with a rope coming off it, and said the sculptor of this has the same last name. I had no idea if we're related, but at the same time I was inspired by the sculpture. I was inspired by the approachable sort of wondrous scale of it. And for some reason I like big stuff. For some reason I like things that are approachable. And I also learned that over time, obviously I've been inspired to create sculpture as a separate sort of side thing. And right before I moved here, I was fortunate enough to win a sculptural series project that was created for the Dark Realm, and it's called The Traveling Man. There's a very large metal man, and I always said it was a robot, but for various reasons it was probably better to sell it through as a traveling man and be a little more general with it. When I proposed it to Dark, I said, well, you know, giant robots, what's cooler than that? And a lot of people was like, I can think of other things that are cooler than that. And a little bit, what I'm getting at is there's a subjectivity to it all. When we were finally able to complete it and install it, and it's 40 feet tall, it's one of the locations, what was sort of the biggest goal through all of that experience was that I wanted to create a destination. I wanted to create a location. It was in a sort of dilapidated part of Deep Ellum. There wasn't really any reason for any foot traffic, but for some reason they had designed a spot for the train to stop. And my goal all along, while collaborating with a close friend, Brad Oldham, in the construction process, was to create a destination where people would go, take their pictures with it, because I had been to Chicago and I'd seen the beam, or the cloud, and I'd seen how that was a draw. It was just an object, but it was a draw. But through the process of creating this, there was a blog that went up that said, what is this? It's just basically a giant version of those muffler men you always see on the side of the road. And that's awesome. You know, I've learned that it's subjective. You're never going to make everybody happy. But what we're doing is it's way better than a vacant lot with weeds, in my opinion. And on top of that, it was so rewarding to jump on the train from the state fairgrounds and enter into Deep Ellum and to stop at that stop where the sculptures were located and to see people already taking their photos. There was a wedding photo shoot happening next to the robot. You know, I don't know why the theme of that, but hey, they did it anyway. But that was what was so rewarding about it, was seeing how it had become a draw. And now if you do a Google search, it's just constantly, every day I'm getting Google alerts about just different people that are there taking the photos, and now it's on t-shirts, and now it's becoming this iconic thing that sort of represents that era of town. So that was an amazing thing to witness and watch. And with this project, more than just street art, more than just sculpture, there are so many opportunities for us to take advantage of this canvas we have around us. And other observations really quick that I've made. I've seen two cities. I grew up in Fort Worth, but I watched how the two cities differentiated between themselves, between Fort Worth and Dallas. My opinion is that Fort Worth embraced who they were, and what they were, and their cultural heritage, and also became progressive and innovative in how they artistically drew people to an area. Where Dallas for a while struggled and tried to be something they weren't. It was almost like you went to Dallas and it just sort of, what, are they trying to be Chicago or are they trying to be Manhattan? I don't know what's going on here. And I think that's important for me, is to see that we have a canvas here and respect the history, but also at the same time challenge everybody to think about something new at the same time. But I don't want to necessarily see what happened, let's say, to the Texas Theater in the 70s, where it was the theater that became notoriously famous for where they had arrested Lee Harvey Oswald. But in the 70s, they did this thing where they just plastered over this beautiful movie palace with this stucco and made it look like something out of Logan's Run. And But then now over time, they've been tearing it down and they're trying to bring it back to its beauty, much like what we have here at the Strand. We're very fortunate the Strand's still here. One last story. My mom and dad met in Monroe, Louisiana, and the reason for their meeting was that my dad loved music, he was majored in music. I believe the university at the time was called Northwest or something like that. Or East, sorry, East. And he wanted to find a place where there was an organ he could practice on. And he learned that there was this amazing organ in this theater, the Paramount Theater, which before that was called the Sugar Theater, which was a vaudeville theater. So Al Jolson performed on the stage, and he also performed on the screen for Jazz Singer in that space. And so it's an amazing building, but it doesn't exist anymore. It's now a parking lot. But the whole story behind that is when he was there practicing on that organ, he got to know the girl who was doing her homework up in the projection booth, and ended up being my mom. So, I love film, I love sculpture, I love drawing, I love painting, I love every form of art we can imagine. I started to throw up these little yellow cards up here on the back wall with categories, and we're not even scratching the surface. Just listening to some of you here from your skills in sewing, for example, and your skills in photography. I didn't even add that up there. So there are going to be several boxes we're going to be checking with each of the events we're going to create. So to recap, just to start over again now, talk about Unseen specifically. It is our goal to have an amazing event once a month, starting in October for an entire year. It is our goal to check off several boxes with each event. It's important to understand the neighborhood we're in, and Wendy's going to talk about that. There's a sheet up here, and I asked for us to print out, for us to understand of other events that are happening in the area, and then Wendy's going to talk about specifically this neighborhood and who is already here. It's important to think through these events that we check off a box that sheds light to something that's already happening here. It's not about inventing something new every time, it's about also saying, hey, did you know, for example, in October, there's an event called the MSPS, which stands for the McNeil Street Pumping Station, which is a little bit outside of our border, but it is organized and was developed by David Nelson, who is within our confines of the Shreveport Common. And the opening night, when they did this in 2011, they brought in international musicians all over the world, and they performed within the acoustic, strange spaces of the McNeil Pumping Station. When I heard about this, I told a lot of my employees at MoveOn, I gotta go, but I really didn't push it because I just heard about that afternoon, the day before the event. And a lot of them didn't get to go, but I was able to catch the last 15 minutes of the last performance, and I was blown away. We had musicians that were taking advantage of silos, putting guitar pickups and wires and dragging them from one building to another, making all these beautiful, interesting sounds. And it was sort of like the scavenger hunt. We just explore the space and happen upon all these different musicians doing all these amazing things in the building. And you know, that is subjective again. Some people like playing with noise and sound in acoustic spaces. My grandmother would go, where's the symphony? My grandmother would be looking for something else artistically. But for me, that was an amazing event. And they're doing it again in October. And it happens to coincide with the month of the launch. So I saw it as an important launch point for us to see, well, okay, maybe we can shed light on this event, and then maybe we can help it augment by creating something that happens the night prior, and maybe potentially bringing in a headlining artist, and it'll take advantage of some of the acoustic spaces of the abandoned, dilapidated buildings around town, and maybe having a walking sort of traffic zone for that evening. That's just a start, right? That's just a start. As the other day, I came down here very early in the morning to take some good photographs to share with some potential artists that may come here to collaborate with us. And I want to get into the collaborating process in a second. But while I was here and I was taking photos, I felt uncomfortable at a certain point. I started to realize that this area isn't necessarily approachable, especially if you start to explore. You happen upon certain things that maybe some people are very uncomfortable with. And with that said, I think it's important for us to understand our neighborhood and to find a way to connect with the community that's here. It's important for all these events to not be seen from an outsider's perspective as, wow, look at all the crazy artists that came into town and threw these parties. And then after the party's over, that was it. what needs to happen is, with this event, we need to leave a mark. My vision and hope is at the end of this year of events, that people will drive through this part of town and go, oh my gosh, what happens here? It's just caked and covered in color and I don't know, the diversity in vision and words and texture. And then when they actually maybe attend an event, it leaves a mark mentally. It leaves a mark, it leaves an impression on them that inspires them to want to experience it again the next year, and augment it and do it over and over and over again. So I think that's another box we need to check, is make sure that it inspires, it's approachable, and that people want to see it happen again. We've got a budget, right? But we're going to run through this budget, and it's going to be over at the end of the year, and we will have failed if that was all it was. Wow, you remember that year where they had all those awesome things happen, and then nothing happened? We will have failed. We need to inspire. So, with that said, I feel like I've touched on the general topics, and I'm going to hand over to Wendy. She can get into a little more of the specifics, and then we'll talk about the months and sort of this idea of national artists. And I want to just real quick talk about the national artists and the concept behind bringing in national and international talent. When you include international national talent, they become spokespersons for our city. They will, like for example, we bring an amazing street artist who's known throughout the world to come do a mural or something. He will leave here after his experience. I have no doubt that he'll go, wow, I had no idea Shreveport was like this. I had no idea it's an amazing town. You've got to go. It has such a rich musical history and all this other stuff. You have to check out this part of town. And that will spread throughout the globe. And will start to get us and generate international attention. And so my concern is when we think about a national artist coming in, that, well, they're just sucking all the money out of potential local artist pockets. And that is not good. We do not want that to happen either. It's important that there's an equal share. And there's a residency of an inspirational residency with our artists locally to be able to collaborate with them. But there are also large windows and blocks that need to be filled. And I'm hoping that you guys start to see things that you have an affinity for and go, you know what, I want to augment and build off of that theme for that month and be a part of that component of UNSCENE. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Alan.
Several other artists, but so that we can keep moving forward, we'll continue with the introductions after the break. But I also want to tell you that Ellen Sofer and Pamela Viviano are on our webcast today. So they can hear what you say, they can hear what I say, and they're watching what's on the screen today. So that's fun. And
hi, Pamela!
And then the next thing I want to remind you is that fill these cards out for us so we know who you are, and there's also some suggestion boxes back there that you feel we need to do. Okay, I'm going to take you through this pretty quickly. How many of you have seen the 3D fly-through of the vision plan for Shreveport Common, or have read the book? Can you raise your hand so I can see? Well, for those of you that have seen it, I'm not going to take you through it this morning. Let me tell you, it's on the Shrek website. It's playing upstairs. I encourage all of you to look at it. What I want to do this morning is just give you a little bit of an idea about this neighborhood, maybe in a way you haven't thought about it before. So I want to talk about what it was, what it is, and what it could possibly be. And y'all are going to continue that discussion this morning about possibilities and opportunities. That's why I'm here. So I just want to fast forward real quick though. If you don't know, for the last 2 years, we've almost 3 years now, we've been working on Shreveport Common full time. And it started with a vision plan for the area, and that vision plan started with a 1-year process of listening, going door to door, listening to the people that live here, the property owners, community, and listening to the artists. What do you want and not want in the area? And that ended up into this vision plan, which has a history in the beginning. You might be really interested in reading. It's a beautiful history. And then the vision plan for the area. After that was vetted through the Discover Shreveport Common Day, and how many artists participated in paid opportunities on Discover Shreveport Common Day. Anybody in here? Because I believe we had 15 artists that were part of temporary art projects to help the community Not all of them visionaries like you are, imagined what this area could be like. Then, this last year, we worked on community experts and stakeholders working with us on research. Now that we have a vision plan, what's feasible, what's not, what's the best way to do it, and coming up with strategies. And now we're in the implementation stage. What we have are 30 partners in the area and 36 major projects. Some of them are, let's have artists live, work, and marketplaces here. And how do we make that happen? What is the community space that we can have here? Community space where you can enjoy it, but also there to be places for programming and public art. What about the infrastructure that we need? The sidewalks, the complete streets, what do those look like? Are they artist designed? Yes, we want them to be. And then what about transportation? And can that be art design too? And yes, we want it to be. So I just want to take you back to Shreveport Common Vision Plans about having a vibrant, animated arts and cultural area in this 9-block area. Starts at Austin Place, runs over to McNeil over here, back to Oakland Cemetery in Milam, and then over to the railroad tracks back here. We're actually a part of Ledbetter and Allendale, we're a little bit of both, which makes us part of the HUD Choice Neighborhood, and Chloe, there's your representative right there for Choice Neighborhood Project, to make this a better place for the people that live and work there. And also we're a part of downtown. We're actually in the middle. And what we hope is that the Shreveport Common, this cultural community, will be the art and cultural 9-block district for both downtown and Choice Neighborhood. So I just want to, I'm not going to read all this, but I'm going to tell you all of these quotes are in the vision plan, or the quotes from something about Shreveport Common, but I want to tell you because it's historically and spiritually a dynamic place, and any of you that have walked the streets know that it is. It is dynamic. It's the crucible of change. It's where this area, it was really a diverse community of hardworking Anglos, free African Americans, and a lot of immigrants moving to this area, not out there. This is the first mixed, what we call mixed-use neighborhood. It's the retail stores below, and then the families lived upstairs. It was walkable. You didn't have to have a car to be here. And it was also artistic. It was home to 20th century music teachers, theaters. It was really the first art galleries were here. They were called art parlors. It was that transitional district between economic and ethnic communities. And so artists came here, craftspeople came here. The creative service industry was here. This is where people made cloths, they made dresses, they made furniture. The stone carvers lived here. And this is where investors invested in architects who are also artists to design the most beautiful buildings in Shreveport and in the state of Louisiana.
Wendy,
Yes.
I'm sorry, did this also include the sex work industry at that point?
It sure does. Entrepreneurs and pioneers, and they were. So I'm not going to tell you the history of the area. I encourage you again. There's a very nice history in the front part of the vision plan. But for those of you that know, I mean, this really was about the people who were. They have spirit about them, and that spirit's in the municipal auditorium. It's in who he led better and what he left behind. It's in the Corinthian temple. It is where many people got their start, and so much so even the Blue Goose District, which we are not in, but if you stand at the dead end of Wilson Street, you can sure see the Blue Goose District, and I'll tell you that there were a lot of people walking back and forth. But Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin in 1994 was in Dallas and said, I need to go walk the streets of Shreveport, Louisiana, because I want to feel that. I want to feel what they felt, and he did. And this is the area that you are talking about today. So they've asked me to talk to you about today. Who lives here? Do y'all know there's 800 people in this 9-block area? That is really surprising. And they're not all living in the camp. There is a homeless camp back by the railroad tracks, and sometimes not 8 people live there. But most of the people that live in this neighborhood are either in transitional or difficult situations. There are 90 families at Providence House, which is transitional, people going from a homeless situation to home. They are families. And the Fairmont Apartments, there are as many as 500 people living in there at times. You hear Did you know that about a third of them are kids? They're children living where there are meth labs, and we're working on that. But I want you to know too that there are a couple of pioneers here, not only David Nelson, who we all consider a pioneer, but there are a couple of people that have made lofts or beautiful apartments, but that's one or two or three. You may not know that right on Austin Place, that between the Hope for the Homeless House and Mercy Center, which is the HIV home for, it's a permanent residence for the homeless with HIV, right in the middle are two beautiful homes that a blind gentleman owns, and he sometimes lives there and sometimes rents them out, and you'll see families waving to you from the front porch. So I want to tell you too about the McAdoo, which has now been totally renovated, beautifully renovated, and that is a VOA program for those that are disabled, some of them with mental disabilities, some of them with physical disabilities. But these are your neighbors, and they're here. And sometimes you'll see them walking back and forth because they have to walk past all that concrete to go over there and catch a bus. We're working on that too. Okay, what about the businesses here? We have 27 businesses in Shreveport Common. That may surprise you. We have a couple of churches. Shreveport Regional Arts Council brought 12 new people to the area. We have 200 full-time workers in this area and several part-time and about 100 that come and go with this grand day of temporary work. But I wanted you to see all the buildings here to see how what a beautiful, beautiful area it is. And then I want to tell you, it may look beautiful to us if we single one part out, but this is what it looks like to everybody else. This is what it looks like to people who aren't visionaries. This is what it looks like to people who are afraid to come downtown. And this is what it looks like to the poor kid that's got to walk through Ledbetter past all this to one of us. And for the kids that are sitting in Providence House saying this is money bar. So, you're here to change that today, for hope and possibilities and opportunities. Woo! Yay! So how do we go from what it is to what it could be? And I want to tell you just real quickly about, there are 9 initiatives for Shreveport Common. 6 of them are arts-driven community initiatives. So, parks and green space, social services, transportation, vendor opportunities, neighbors, partners, even developers. What we are working on 7 days a week is that getting the funding, getting the infrastructure in place. Y'all don't care about, you care about the zoning, but it's not in your face what's the zoning and how we need to change it so that people can't have some of the things that they can have down there right now. For developers, how can we inspire developers to build that artist live, work, and market space? How can we have the green spaces here that are properties paid for, they're constructed, and they're artist designed? Those are the things that we're working on every day, arts-led community initiatives. But there are 3 of the initiatives, the last 3 of the 9, that are about you guys. And that's what you're going to be thinking about all day today, and that is your role. What is your role in it? What is arts programming in the area? What is the public art in the area? And this, UNSCENE, is just the first. It's the first funded, year-long, large-scale opportunity. It's an opportunity for you, and I left it black on purpose because y'all are going to talk about what it's going to look like today.
I'm sorry, could you please say the 9 initiatives again?
They're written for you on your progress report card. All 9 of them are in there because we have a task force for every one of them. Okay? So I don't want to take up any more of your brainstorm. Yes. So I don't want to take any more of your brainstorm or your fun time.
Thank you.
But I do want to tell you that I'm here all day. Shreveport Common Vision Plan's playing all day. It's going to happen. People ask me all the time, and I'm telling you, it's already happened. You were in this building. It was not like this last year. And there are other things taking place that were not taking place last year. So I look forward to seeing what your plan is for doing that public art and arts programming and your role in this new fantastic community.
Wendy, if they want the whole story, conference room upstairs during lunch, it'll be playing and the sound will be playing.
Yes, that's also on the Strat website.
Are there more of those confidential?
Yes, we'll get you some more. We'll pass them out. Okay, so rather than taking questions and answers at this point, again, I'm here, come find me, and I'm turning it back over to
Brandon.
Brandon.
these months and these names and images that are stuck up here. So to start with October, since we didn't have a lot of time to prepare, and also, and we were so fortunate, and it was incredibly convenient that the MSPS, the McNeil Street Pumping Station New Music Festival was going to happen again, so that we could shed light, piggyback into this event, but then also help bring more awareness to it. So this thing, the pumping station thing, happens on Saturday, but the 11th, October the 11th, the day before, we're going to have several of the artists that they've already booked performing in advance somewhere in various locations. We're targeting, for example, the old Ford dealership, where I believe they had Model Ts, and it's like an abandoned parking garage. It's a pretty awesome space if you haven't explored it. And another thing that's happening, it's quite messy and dirty in there, and obviously we want to be able to clean it out a bit. So that, that's an interesting kind of mark that we're making in advance of having musicians perform, let's say, in that space or another abandoned building space over here. The idea is to have some walking traffic, like I had said before. So maybe if we're lucky, we're going to get a headlining artist for that, but obviously we've been sending out letters and there's not a lot of time to prepare. So fingers crossed for that. Either way, we're already building on and working with an amazing experimental music festival that's going to be happening that month. There's also another interesting event that Symphony is doing at the Scottish Rite Cathedral. They're going to be screening the film Nosferatu and having the symphony or a component of the symphony, I think just the strings, performing the score to the film. So there's a chance through the dialogue I've got going right now with Michael Butterman to potentially augment and shed light to that event and have something happen potentially in the street in advance. We'll see. But that's two things all compacted into the month of October, not to mention the regular events that happen at ArtSpace for Halloween. So that's October. November, there's a restaurant, and it's the hottest restaurant in San Francisco. It's called Rich Table. And there's a video, sent Lauren a link, and maybe Lauren can load up the link to that video while I'm talking about Rich Table. The husband-wife team. She is, Sarah Rich is from Shreveport. I was fortunate enough to have a dinner there at Rich Table a few weeks ago through the Cultivate Festival, which is hosted by Chipotle Mexican Grill. They do a music fest, cooking festival, an educational, sort of food education festival that happens now 3 times a year. And this last one I just got to go to was in San Francisco, park, Golden Gate Park. And they had an evening dinner at Rich Table for all the chefs they had brought into town to do demonstrations. And so you can imagine having all these amazing rock star chefs that are on various reality shows being served dinner by Sarah Rich. So she was cooking for chefs. The pressure was really on, but to witness that and then to get to know her, it's not completely confirmed, but we're targeting November for a couple of reasons. There's the Autumn Farmers Market, I believe, that's happening at that time. But then on top of that, there are some interesting and exciting ideas about making an edible park. You've heard about edible parks, but you know, all of the various sort of landscape architecture, we would take advantage of plants like beech trees and vines and that sort of thing. So make a beautiful park space, working with, let's say, a nonprofit that's already here, and enriching a vacant plot of land that maybe, you know, obviously every one of these events is going to hopefully happen in a different location. And every one of these events hopefully is working closely with the property owner, the building owner, to be able to increase the value of their community. So, and also the whole point of this, and we bring an international and national artists in, is that there's a residency. Sometimes we'll get lucky and we'll have them for a month, other times it may only be for a week, but that they properly interact with our community. I don't know if you've heard about what Cohabitat is doing. They're building a kitchen to be able to empower entrepreneurial folks who want to enhance their culinary skills in the culinary arts and bring a new component of culinary arts to our community. So there potentially is an interesting way that, you know, we'll do artist calls but we want to target them to a degree and say, you know what, those of you in the culinary arts field, those of you who are wanting to start to bring something new, some sort of farm-to-table kind of concept to this community, maybe you're the right ones as far as synergies and connections with Sarah, for example, and her husband. So that's Rich Treble. Yeah?
Her husband's from Shreveport.
Her husband's from Shreveport. I'm getting on with that, sorry. So, with that said, December is being targeted right now to Artists in Shepherd Fair. I don't know if you've seen the Obama poster. It says Hope. It was Shepherd's thing. But well before that, he had built a career based on his Obey stickers that he started slapping up all over the world. And that became a brand. And then he has t-shirts. I'm wearing one right now under this. And outside of that, there's just street art. It covers the globe now, Shepherd does. And when you have anything of his on the side of your building, you'd be surprised at how high the property value will go. So we've targeted a few buildings and have started a dialogue with Shepherd about potentially using the data storage building's surface because it's so large. Maybe, maybe the Fairmont, maybe the cap end of the brick strip of buildings of the 800 block. Is that right? I forget the number that David Nelson mentioned. But ideally, it sort of serves as a gateway, and they're near in location to the Caribbean and the municipal. And Shepherd loves music. There's an awesome little documentary that just popped up online the other day about his record collection and his fascination with music. But he loves bringing something to a dilapidated area of town. He loves focusing on the history of music. So it seems like a perfect match. Now, he brings with him his own team when he installs and does his murals. He just did a series over in Dallas, and I was fortunate to have a close friend that's been friends with him for over a decade that organized that effort. But it was in the Oak Cliff area of Dallas. And so if you take that bridge, that new funky-looking bridge near Dallas, right over to Oak Cliff, you'll see a Shepherd Ferry that serves as a gateway into that community. And already buildings are popping up and new businesses are popping up around that area. And that's exciting. So that's the idea, is it potentially serves as a gateway with some of his work. But when it comes to artist interaction and a residency, there's potential here for digital artists and engineers and programmers. Starting to speak to some of the teachers over at Centenary, and potentially putting together a team that creates an app, for example. And when you aim the phone camera, that while it's running this app, at the mural, augmented reality things will occur, whether the picture itself will animate, or it'll trigger sound and music from the era, or it'll trigger any sort of linked content related to the history of that area. And so to think that maybe through this process, and we do it early enough, this app can then be updated and be used on other street art as well, because through my experience with augmented reality, with a video game that we just did, Move Out Studios for PlayStation, and another app that we built off of our book. It sort of seems like alchemy. You aim the camera at the image, the programming language recognizes the image, which then triggers information and data related to that image. It's exciting, and everybody nowadays, not everybody, but a lot of people have these things in their pocket, and it becomes an educational component that can happen and enhance a street art or a walking experience. So that's exciting. As it relates to Shepherd, December is maybe, if we're lucky, the right month, but there's a whole, obviously, his queue is quite large, but we're starting the dialogue, and he has already been thinking about doing something in augmented reality to begin with, in relation to something that's related to skating, and we'll get into skateboarding and all of that. So it might be good timing. All right, so those of you who know Brady Blake, he has a studio across the hall from us over in the Intertech Park. He is from here, as you know. He has a brother who now lives here, Brian Blake, and the two of them are internationally known musicians. And Brady has just this past year put together a new album with other artists, Dave Matthews, Jacob Dillon, the Sexton Brothers, and they formed a new band and they created a new album. They started to plan out their launch for their album. And I said to Brady, who's on our panel, said, well, why don't you launch it with one of our events? Why don't you perform some of the songs live? When can you get all of those artists back to the same space? Because they've come down to Shreveport twice to work on this album. So Brady says, January. So an idea, for example, is we work with Diego and who is in Shreveport Common, take advantage of the soundstage space if it's available, perform a live show with these new songs in there. And now I'm going to get to a point that is important for some of these events, to have some revenue generation occur. Sure, it'd be awesome, you do something like that, maybe the ticket price is kind of high, who knows what it will be, but it becomes an exclusive, awesome event. But a lot of people are going to miss out on that. There's an investment in our budget into a very nice video projector, a bright, large video projector that can hit large surfaces. And I would love for you guys to think of this as just one of your tools that you can potentially use as we move forward and hit surfaces and buildings. But imagine if we have an outdoor video projection with PA of what's happening in that building, but outside for a larger community to experience. And then imagine we have a flatbed truck in the back of the soundstage that has a separate setup of gear, drums, guitars, amps, that then the band gets on and performs their last 3 songs. So in a surprise, so don't tell anybody. They go out and they come around and they perform the encore for the gathering of people who just come to experience it for free. So that is unexpected, and that is one of those boxes we're trying to check off. So imagine something like that happen.
Did you happen to say loudly enough, Dave Matthews?
Dave Matthews.
Say it loudly enough,
Dave
Jacob Dylan?
Jacob Dylan, Bob Dylan's son.
Yeah, I wanted to make
The one headlight song guy. Okay, moving on, February. We've been talking, and we're confirmed on Steve Olson. He is one of the original founders of the concept of skateboarding. He is one of the greatest known skateboarders. If you go to Wiki, you'll see a list of 5. He's one of them. He is also a fine artist. And a skate park is sometimes frowned upon in the community. And sometimes people will think, oh, that's going to decrease the value of our property. You get a bunch of kids and punks around skateboarding and rail sliding on public art. I, for one, saw this when I was in San Francisco when I was just there recently. There's sculpture that have special little metal little nubs placed on certain areas that are perfect for rail sliding. And that is not a part of the art. But what if sculpture was designed to be skated on? So what if, instead of just making a skate park, what if we took advantage of a vacant concrete lot and had sculpture? It's almost like a sculpture garden that then is also a space for the kids or whoever, adults. If you look at some of this video, if you load up Steve Olson's video, you're going to see him. He's all gray-haired and he's up there with the rest of them in the swimming pools. He was the first to skate the swimming pools in Los Angeles. He was sponsored by Santa Cruz. If you've seen these old skateboard decks that were checkered, that was his brand. But what's really exciting about Steve is an exhibit in conjunction with this that will happen at Art Space, where he's going to bring in a lot of skateboard artists. He also does a performance art piece. This is a recent documentary, little vignette made by a magazine covering his process. He creates amazing flat surface art, textured materials he collects, but he also does this. Maybe some people think of this as a gag or a gimmick, but he recently did this in Venice at one of his openings. He sets up a half pipe and he sets down large canvases and he puts globs of paint and skates through them onto the canvases and does tricks so he's painting and using the skateboard as the device for delivering the medium. He and now his younger son, who is one of the hottest current skateboarding talents, will collaboratively do this. So when we have a residency like this, building a skate park, we also build up to an unveiling event. So think about these months sort of stair-stepping and moving, and certain things moving in tandem. An artist is here unveiling something, but another artist is overlapping and creating that then unveils the following month. So in a residency like this, craftsman, for example, can be a major component when it comes to an artist-caller collaboration. So that's Steve. We're really excited about his involvement, and Brady Blade was integral in bringing him in. He's apparently a really good bass player as well. So we want to empower the national artists to think about how they'll collaborate with local artists to create a more impactful opening event for the day of. And I don't want to get into the logistics of waivers and all of that stuff, but that is obviously something that's spinning in the minds of Pam and
I just want to stick around and feel, you know.
Sure. And so I don't know if you've seen these art of skateboard decks exhibits, but they're pretty amazing. The art on skateboard decks is beautiful. It's beautiful even after they've been used hundreds of times and they're all scratched up. But we're going to be working to create a potential artist hall and supplying artists with decks to create art on. All right, so next on the list, March. March is a targeted date for 2 events, Erykah Badu potentially and Wayne White potentially. There's the Corinthian and I failed to remember the name, Court, the woman who was responsible for the Corinthian building. Help me with that. Corinthian, sorry.
Wow.
Thank you. All right. There's an event that already highlights her amazing accomplishments and this structure. The structure, from what I understand, it's pretty dilapidated. You don't want to necessarily go in it. And it would take millions of dollars to refurbish it, and who knows? It's still a beautiful space. There's so much rich history there. So there's a chance here where we could potentially bring someone in like Erykah Badu to do a performance. Imagine what the Beatles did on the rooftops, or what U2 copied later did on a rooftop performance. Imagine her collaborating with Kara Walker, who's known for her silhouetted artworks. And imagine those being projected on the building and potentially animated while she performs. Imagine then collaborating with a spoken word artist. What's your poet? Suni Patterson. So we're trying to find a synergy right now between these 3 women, African American women, to collaborate to highlight that specific space. And March is the national event that happens. I don't even know if we have it up here.
March is also
The Calanthian, I just keep saying Corinthian, sorry. You'll learn over time that I'm really bad with names, and I say them correctly all the time. Another March overlapping date building up to, let's say, that Tuesday, a parade of sorts. There's an artist named Wayne White who I've been fortunate enough to get to know. He has a great little documentary that was traveling all the film festivals last year, so I don't know if we can bring up Wayne's link. Wayne, to me, exemplifies so much. I would actually like you guys just to watch this trailer for his film. I need to take a sip of water. But he's such an inspiring figure. He's from the South. And this trailer will tell you everything. So I don't know if you can turn up the volume on this and have you guys watch this. But to think that he can come to town and design a parade is pretty awesome. And he and his wife Mimi, wrote the first episode of The Simpsons. And on top of that, yeah, back it up in these pods. I want to say one more thing. We've become friends, and they are very excited. He's been moving from residency to residency all over from Canada to Florida, but he's excited to think about doing something in March as a parade. You'll see in this video that we talk about what his desires are. Okay, so let's wrap it up and just turn it back. I think you have 2 things going. $30. Alright, so we'll wait a second. Let's do that. Whether we watch this or not, he did have us start doing all of Pee-wee's Playhouse's production design, but has since moved into the fine art world. Todd Olin has recently done a whole book on all of his painting work. He's a very resourceful individual. When he did his first one-man show paintings, he didn't have the money to afford a bunch of canvases and frames, so he just went to a bunch of thrift stores and swap meets and flea markets and collected paintings people were throwing away. And then he augmented them and added his own thing on top of those paintings. You can back it up to the beginning. I'll turn the volume on. Sounds like your volume is up there. Anyway, just check this out. You can load it up on YouTube. If you do Wayne White, his documentary is called Beauty is Embarrassing, and it's really inspiring, and I encourage you to watch the entire documentary. It has inspired me greatly over this past year. So, we'll move on from Wayne. You're getting a taste of this. So now into April. There's an artist from Sweden who transplanted to New Orleans and has lived there for over a decade and now has recently moved her home to Shreveport, Louisiana. Her name is Teresa Anderson. Teresa will be performing a Scandinavian folktale called The Red Shoes. And she's designing this with her husband, Arthur Mintz, as an experience to happen in a large dome. It'll be projected upon. She's going to perform in the center. The way she performs is with loops. She uses her feet to repeat loops, whether they're coming from a violin or a singing saw or drums or her voice, but she textures and layers all of her tracks. It's an amazing thing to witness. So it'll be a theater and a round experience inside the dome. There will be, she has a request to collaborate with engineers from a sound and technical standpoint, and also dancers. She needs dancers to perform shadow puppetry that will be projected on the surface of the dome while she does her show. And she's going to world premiere this here for 3 weeks, 2 shows a night, possibly twice or 3 times a week. We're going to be able to put 300 people in this dome a night, 150 per performance. There's a chance here for some revenue generation for, let's say, a nonprofit, and also Shrek itself, or another art institution. And so there's some awesome opportunities there for collaboration. And the dome is designed to go on tour and to be placed in a space like this that we're in right now, for example. She's going to then take it from here to Jazz Fest. So the timing is critical, and that's why April's part of her slate. So here's a clip of her performing, and you get a taste of how what she does. And you can see, I don't know if they do any close-ups on her feet or not, but it's pretty cool. All right, let's keep moving on. May is the targeted date. It's still up in the air exactly if it's going to lock in on May. These are chess pieces, as you know. There's a group in New Orleans called Airlift that a few years collaborated with an artist named Swoon, who, if you've seen Swoon's work, she builds these rafts because it covers them with these amazing textures, and it's almost like, I don't know, it's like a moving sort of thing. They did it down like some various rivers in France, where it's just sort of a moving sort of bohemian collective that just floated down the river with these sculptural homes and rafts. But on top of that, they collaborated with Airlift to take a dilapidated house, a shotgun, and an alleyway, and turn it into, that's a different thing, that's not Airlift. I think you have a different thing, maybe. And they turned a house into a musical instrument with a collaboration between a lot of people. It wasn't just one person in this. So imagine taking a dilapidated house, turning it in, cleaning it out, gutting it, and then turning it into an amazing sort of venue space for performance. Because that's what happened in New Orleans. Once this was created, it was an interactive sculptural piece, but also it became a venue where then they could book it. And then there were like artists that were passing through town, whether they were heading from Memphis to Austin, they wanted to stop there and perform in that space. So that's what's exciting, and it's impromptu. To think that you can just happen upon this thing one evening over the course of a month and perform it. This idea, this Airlift idea of turning a house into music has become a big hit, and they've started to make mobile homes that do this. So while they're potentially doing a residency, they'll also bring a mobile home and park it in a vacant lot, so you can see what we're building. So that's an exciting opportunity for us. What is her name, the lady that runs Airlift? Delaney. I don't think you know Delaney.
Y'all been to the music house in New Orleans?
I think they've since shut it down, but that's the other thing that's kind of a bummer. I would like to think that we can figure out a way to keep ours open longer. So June is this is a long shot just because of the slate and how booked up he already is. There's an artist named Nick Cave. Not the musician. But no, still just as awesome. This guy was originally a fashion designer, and he's now turned fine artist. His name is Nick Cave. He just did a thing in Denver. I don't even know how to explain it. You just kind of have to just go to maybe his website. You go to soundsuit.com. He works with students, whoever. He comes to a town in advance, works with whoever he can get his hands on to create these amazing costumes. And then at a certain point, they're unleashed on the community. They walk through Grand Central Station, they walk into a museum, they walk through a school, and you can't even see the faces of the people in these costumes. I really can't explain it. It's kind of just see it. There's so much color and life and motion as it relates to these outfits that are created. But once they are created, they're works of art themselves. And so ideally, they would go on exhibit. Some of these websites, no, it's not something like that. You may have to do a sound suit, just Google search Nick Cave sound suit.
Yeah, Nick Cave and sound suit would be able to find it.
CAVE. So, there's a chance that June will open up entirely. Now, in July, there was a group we were targeting called Court 13, but as of last night, they've said they're too busy this year to come. But the task we were laying in front of them that we're very excited about is really open to anybody who wants to be part of this. It's to create an outdoor movie experience. The drive-in, I think you maybe heard of that before, but they don't exist much in the community around here anymore. But more so than that, imagine a screen or a surface being more than just a screen. Maybe it's sculptural, maybe it's a place with shade, maybe it's a seating area, maybe it's a park, maybe it's a playground. But at night, it's got a large surface on it that you can project on. Imagine a big, open, vacant, concrete lot. I think there's a few of those in Shreveport Common. That could be a place where people could drive out and park. Maybe you can surround this lot with some food trucks. Maybe you can have a PA. If you can't have a PA, you can have a radio transmitter. You can pick it up on your car stereo. You can park. You can have an experience like some of us used to have when we were kids. And to create it's something that's not just one experience in the evening. It would be a multiple evening experience. And then also during the day, it serves as a sculptural piece or a gathering spot or a destination. So you're seeing Nick Cave work now. But I think that should still stand. This idea should be played with. It also allows for our filmmakers, our photographers, our painters, anybody to be able to then have rotating art that's projected in advance of a film or prior to whatever it's going to be. So it can be used almost throughout half of this year. And that month of doing this for July could easily move to another month, but feels like that's a fun family evening event and it's not a school night. Another thing I just want to propose to you guys, and I don't know if you would want to do this or not, but you ever seen Iron Chef, where you have celebrity judges, but you also have selected teams that go against each other, and you have ingredients laid out on the table, and then there's the secret ingredient that's just sort of thrown on you. So what if there was sort of like, you've seen that movie Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome? What if there was a space that was sort of like this gathering fight club space? And what if it was an evening to raise funds or raise money for a charity where when you're here and at this event, there's large video screens of what's happening on the fight floor. And then you have teams, a bracket system, almost like March Madness, where you have collectives of artists, whether they're dancers, sculptors, painters, they're all working together. They're all in, like, let's say, jumpsuits that are the same color. And they compete against each other during, let's say, 30-minute sessions over the course of the evening. You break the bracket system down into a final competition in the evening. But the way it would work, and the way the scoring would work, and how it would happen is there would be a space, there would be materials, and then they are unleashed upon those materials over a short period of time. And there's cheering, there's video coverage, there's commentary, but the way that you figure out who wins or not is there's just two sets of tubes that lead down to a giant scale. Team A or Team B. Now, over the course of the evening, there are coins or some sort of heavy-like object that are being just sort of purchased throughout the party. So, I really like Team B. I'm going to get another one of those coins. I'm going to throw it down the pipe. Oh, they're behind now. I'm going to get another coin. I'm going to throw it down the pipe. But then, when a team wins, it's whatever's left over, whether they won for their personality, they won for their expression, or they won for whatever it was, the object. That object could go on sale, and it could be silent auction that evening as well to raise money. But it's a fun way to put competition into art and turn art into a sport, which I think a lot of people like to think those things are separate and probably should stay separate. But I would like to just propose it to all of you as a potential event for an evening. There are forms of this that happen throughout the country, and they've been very successful, and I'd like to think that maybe we could take it up a bar and make it an amazing event for one thing like that. And that would require all sorts of and so the Shreveport has, obviously, we would love to take advantage of Shreveport and put them in a special location. I don't know if you ever saw what happened in Bosnia, but the symphony performed in a dilapidated, war-torn space, and it was an amazing expression for hope. And what would be awesome to see is to take the symphony out of their comfortable space, put them into a unique space here in town, and to have them collaborate with the local musicians or several other local musicians, curate a special piece that's unique in all of itself. So they have an opening in September in their calendar. We'd love to be able to make it work. However, their price tag is quite high. So that's the other thing, is we have this budget for every month, and we're trying to make it work for all of these artists. And when you start to bring in that many people for an event, it becomes a little expensive. So we would love to think that we could do something with the symphony in a site-specific performance. I think that would be all. So I think we've covered the year. Those are the targeted national artists. I'm trying to be as transparent as possible with those who are completely locked in versus those who are moving, and some of them that even went away, but I think there's potential here. Court 13, just tell you a little bit about them. Unfortunately, I'm not doing this, but it's a group founded by Ben, who directed Beast of the Southern Wild in New Orleans. I think you saw that film. And they have a piece that they just did in New Orleans, a sculptural piece with film as a component of it. And I was hoping that they could help and come and be a part of this, but they're here to book out, I think. So, I feel like c'est la vie, and we can do something with our own local artists for that. All right, I've covered those bases. What should I talk about next?
We're going to do the idea session.
All right, idea session. All right. I've thrown up a couple of, we have several ways we can do this. There are these giant Post-it notes that are on the back wall. And I've started to draw in ideas. And I think it's important for all of us to share our own ideas of what we think Uncommon can be. And so I would encourage you during a more sort of open forum of just conversation and thought. If you're already bringing something to the table, or if this conversation has already inspired something, we'd like for you to write it under one of these categories. Now, if the category doesn't exist that I've thrown up here, there are more of these Post-its, these giant Post-its. You can slap them up and start to write or draw ideas. They could be 3 or 4 words. I've tried to limit your sentence to express the idea. It's your log line, for example, for your idea. But I'd love for everybody just to sort of plaster these walls with random ideas and try to find the category it would fall under. And then, through just interaction, pick up one of your markers, put a star by the one that sounds cool to you. And let's see how many stars start collecting near some of these ideas. And then after a certain period of time, I don't know when we'll call it on our stopwatch, we'll stop and then we'll start to look at the ones that have the most stars next to them, and then start an open forum and dialogue related to those ideas. Maybe, I'm hoping that some of these ideas that end up coming out of all of us will fall under one of these bigger overarching themes, whatever those are, and that they can be collaborate, they can become a larger part of a larger collaboration with the national artists. So, with that said, I just want to let you guys, start to sort of let it all flow out. And feel free to just write on whatever surface we can give you. We have a lot of these Post-it notes. There's also one other thing. If you want to keep your idea more private, there are boxes. These boxes over here.